crossed out soldier and written scout.
There's a very wide selection of material that he's obviously read from and cross-referenced into this book. There's even Greek philosophers he's quoting. He's quoting American pioneers. He's lifting chunks from Kipling.
Ah, here we've got knots. To tie a knot seems to be a simple thing, and yet there are right ways and wrong ways of doing it. It's written something else in over the top. No, lives depend on a knot being properly tied, says Afterthought.
Which is so very true.
And these are his drawings?
They are his drawings. It's quite difficult to actually draw a knot that people can follow and copy.
Yes.
There's total clarity that you could follow that.
You think?
Yes, I do.
2 half hitches. That one looks hard, though, doesn't it?
No.
Even in diagram form.
No.
When you open this, your job, your movement, everything here comes from his notes on some bits of lined paper, doesn't it?
From these pages, it is quite amazing to think that the whole Scout movement has flowed from him sitting down and scribbling these notes. A bit like the Ten Commandments in the Christian tradition. But
I'm sure he'd be flattered by that.
In January 1908, when Scouting for Boys was set for publication, Arthur Pearson orchestrated the marketing. He decided that rather than publish it as a single volume, it should first be serialised in separate parts, which you had to wait for and could collect.
Scouting for Boys was a success virtually from day one. By the time the 6th fortnightly instalment came out, boys were queuing to buy it. Baden-Powell's original idea was that Scouting would piggyback on existing boys' movements. But then when the book came out, Scouting appealed in such a way that boys wanted to scout themselves. So Baden-Powell had more or less to scramble to catch up with the wildfire success of the book. So the movement followed the book. It's one of the few, if not only, instances, I think, in world history of a book having generated a movement.
And one of the secrets of the movement's success is right there in the opening section.
This is a very famous painting of a scout, and it shows a boy in that classic scout uniform. And I think we've all seen it so often that you forget how very odd it is. The hat is a South African hat from the constabulary where Baden-Powell was serving. Then the shirt, which is an army shirt, a long army shirt worn in India and Afghanistan. And basically the army had fashioned it on the traditional Muslim shirt. Shorts, which no one in this country wore at all. Parents had to sort of cut off long trousers to make them fit. So it's an odd collection of things, but Baden-Powell always claimed they were all practical. The hat, you could carry water in. The shirts, if you put 2 of the shirts together and shoved the staves that the scouts carry, they turn into a stretcher. The scarf turned into a sling, again for emergencies. And the figure here on the right isn't a scout, but the suggestion is, in a fairly obvious way, that he's blessing the entire scout movement.
Baden-Powell also ordained a hierarchy of officers, invented a scout salute, and composed a scout oath.
On my honour, I promise to do my duty to God and the King. I will try to help others, whatever it costs me. I know the scout law and will obey it.
Crucially, the scout law wasn't a list of forbidden acts, but one of positive aims.
A scout's honour is to be trusted. A scout is loyal. A scout's duty is to be useful and to help others. A scout is a friend to all and a brother to every other scout.
In Scouting for Boys, Baden-Powell also gave the movement something critical: the impression it already had a history.
The British Empire had quite a propensity for inventing traditions. In other words, for making up a movement, an idea, an organisation, and then passing it off, or indeed marketing it, as something traditional and conventional, and steeped in the past. Scouting, of course, does so by harking back to what Baden-Powell calls the Scouts of history.
In the old days, the knights were the Scouts of Britain, and their rules were very much the same as the Scout law which we have now. We are their descendants, and we ought to keep up their good name and follow in their steps.
Baden-Powell even suggested that Scouting had a lineage that led all the way to the king. He noted that the king signs himself R.I., Rex Imperator, the emperor. He says, Imperator comes from two Roman words, im and perere, which together mean to prepare for, that is, to be prepared, which rather neatly makes the king the chief scout. It's neat, but it isn't true. Imperator just means he who rules, but no one was going to object, and certainly not the king.
Edward VII returned the favour in autumn 1909, when he knighted Baden-Powell. By now, the Scout movement had over 100,000 members. Scout troops were patrolling